Selling to fleet and leasing companies. So some things to think about in this context are... Sorry, I've got a question up the back.
Are you saying that if we're buying half a dozen cars off one auction per week, we search their entity or not?
No, they have to give you title as a result of it. They're a dealer, they have to guarantee title.
Okay, so selling to fleet and lease companies, does the fleet leasing company have an interest in the vehicle? Is it a PPS lease? And PIMSIs, is there a need to register a PIMSI, and what impact does that have on your transaction with the fleet and leasing company? So does the fleet leasing company have an interest in the vehicle? The answer is they might do, because where the fleet leasing company is granting a PPS lease to one of its customers in relation to a vehicle, the fleet company will need to register a PIMSI over that vehicle themselves to protect its interest in that vehicle. And this is another significant change from the way the law currently operates, because right now a fleet company owns the vehicle. Its lease says that it owns it, and the title does not pass to the customer. That's enough to protect its interest under the current law, but that will no longer be the case. So where there's a PPS lease created, the leasing company will have to create a PIMSI and register it in order to protect its interests. If it doesn't do that, then the fact that it says it's the owner in the documents, and in fact is the owner in the documents, won't matter. It won't be enough. They will have to create a PIMSI to protect themselves and protect their interests, and failure to do that and to register a PIMSI appropriately and correctly will result in the fleet leasing company losing priority to other creditors. So that's pretty important implications for them, but what does that mean for dealers? We'll come to that in a minute. So what sort of leases are they actually going to have to register a PPS? What sort of vehicle leases are they going to have to register an interest in? Well, the key concept is a PPS lease. And so that will be leases of motor vehicles for 90 days or more, or for a term of less than 90 days, which is automatically renewable for terms that might get to 90 days or more. Where there's a lease and the term is less than 90 days, but the lessee actually retains possession uninterrupted of the vehicle for 90 days or more, or where there's a lease for an indefinite term. So between all of those, it's going to capture an enormous range of leasing. Some short-term, quite short-term leases of property will be out, but a very, very large number of those leases are going to constitute PPS leases, or might start out as something else but turn into a PPS lease over time. So there's going to be a need for leasing companies to register quite a lot of PIMSIs under this new regime. So what you need to be aware of when you're selling to a fleet and leasing company is that that company may need to protect its interest in the vehicle by registering a PIMSI.
They're already asking for title to pass to them before they've paid. Yes, we...
Correct, right on to...
I have a secret weapon for you. You know, fleet leasing companies invited, are they, Mark? No, good.
Right onto it, which is registering an interest first. So if you're supplying on credit terms to a leasing company, you know that they're probably going to register a PIMSI to protect their interests. You've got to register a PIMSI. What did we learn before about the priority time? First PIMSI in time has priority. So if you get in and register your PIMSI before they register their PIMSI, your PIMSI is going to have priority over their PIMSI, all right, and protect your interest properly.
This might be a way of straightening up trading terms for leasing companies.
Indeed. if they've already got in and registered a PIMSI, then you might need to have an agreement with them about how your PIMSI is going to have priority over their PIMSI until they pay you. That will be challenging, but it's possible. It's possible to have an agreement regarding priority with the leasing company. But you need to do that, otherwise you run the risk that you're unsecured, or you may have perfected your interest, but it won't actually protect you because they will have first priority. So that's something to think about.
Thank you. And I'd like to give credit to Damien, our Chief Operating Officer, for this slide. I love this slide. Okay, here's the vehicle on floor plan. Here's the customer with the novated lease. This is the vehicle delivery to the fleet lease customer. Here's when the fleet leasing customer signed his novated lease with the fleet company. Here's when you pay out barment or floor. Are you getting a picture here?
Queen Street.
That's when the leasing company pays the dealer. Oops, wrong way. The floor plan financier may have a registered security interest. First PPSR. The dealer has to register a PPSR over the vehicle to protect himself against the fleet leasing company going bust by being a secured creditor, as opposed to delivering 300 cars and then whistling. Because it is a genuine whistle now. Car's gone. And the leasing company registers the PPSR from here.
How can we register an interest there? It's got no interest in the vehicle itself.
The customer has signed the contract. Sorry?
They've got nothing to give the customer at that point in time.
No, but they've done a deal with you. So, that's a grey area for security interests. Someone has to, if you're a franchise dealership, someone has to have man-up conversations with the fleet leasing companies. I've had lots and lots of phone calls from dealers all over the place, Western Australia, saying, "You're kidding me." If you deliver to fleet leasing companies, be aware of this. If you want to protect yourself, you can't hide behind the financier. You want to protect yourself. Someone in the dealership has to make the executive decision on how you protect yourself or how you stay unsecured. But retention of title, gone. Just because they don't pay doesn't mean you get it. You become unsecured. Sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
I'm going to go straight to the bottom point here. Those 2 points are the secret weapon. The fleet leasing company can't do anything if they don't have the vehicle's VIN. Thank you for making your own conclusions. That's very good.
Exactly. So, in light of that, a couple of things to think about. Firstly, comply with requirements of financiers in selling, and we talked about that previously, but it's important to emphasise that point again. Second, consider your need to register a PPSR, just like we were explaining with selling generally. And then the 2 points that Chris just alluded to, which is that without a VIN, they won't be able to register a specific interest over that particular vehicle, and you've got the chance to get in first. And if they've got in first, then yeah, there's a hard conversation that probably has to be had about priority arrangements. And that might
register in their own name, like you're talking about an overall, and they do that first.
They can register.
That's not
but until there's actually that particular piece of property actually comes within the ownership, it can't be encumbered. So, yeah, you can only give an interest over property that you either have or that you've actually acquired. All right. So, if it's a future vehicle that person hasn't acquired, then yeah, a general kind of security interest won't apply until they actually acquire the ownership of it.
And of course, you have to supply the correct VIN.